Good afternoon and very welcome everyone to our first monthly hangout. We at Startup Portugal are very excited to have you here, in presence or remotely. And this is the first of, I hope, many events like this that will allow us to talk to each other, to discuss the ecosystem challenges, solutions, what can we do as an action to go further and to improve, and discuss between ourselves, between the actors of the ecosystem, and between all people that want to contribute, all the institutions that want to contribute to make this community more strong and better. At Startup Portugal, we define ourselves as an ecosystem booster. So we want to be an ecosystem developer to make it growth and to make it more friendly to entrepreneurs, to startups, working together with all the actors and stakeholders. Gathering the community is a top priority to us, so it's very important for us, this type of events. So we want your feedback and your participation. And we want you to feel this as your own space and place. So every last Wednesday of each month, we'll be gathering here at the end of the day to talk about important issues for the community and the ecosystem. And we hope to welcome you a lot and to have your inputs and participation. If you have something to say, some value to add, if you bring some valuable inputs, we are here to give you stage. We are here to listen to you. These sessions, these monthly sessions, will have 4 moments. A first one that will be an ecosystem brief, in which we'll give you some information about the topics we'll be discussing further on. The second moment will be a warm-up pitch, where we'll tell you a story or an initiative, or show you an initiative that can inspire us all to do better. The third moment will be a talk between people in our community that can ignite a discussion, that can say something to change and to make us do better. And the fourth moment will be a networking moment, a chill out, to have the opportunity to catch up and have an open conversation about different subjects. And this network moment will be upstairs, and I think you will be able to enjoy this magnificent view. And I will thank Nuno and Pedro from Ferroviário that welcome us in this amazing place that is very inspiring, and that make with us this possible. And so I'd like to give you, Pedro and Nuno, a round of applause for making this possible. Thank you. And now on this afternoon topic, diversity. When we were designing the topics for the monthly hangouts, we talked to Vanessa Sanchez and from Bantuman, and she challenged us to celebrate the Black History Month that we are celebrating in February. And we immediately say yes. So it's a great opportunity to talk about this important issue to the whole community, to the different levels of this community. And obviously, the black minority is a priority, but also more than that. Other minorities must be supported in our entrepreneur community. We are still mainly white men in the room, and there's for sure the need to act efficiently to be more representative in our world. Why is diversity so important? Don't forget that privileged entrepreneurs solved privileged people's problem. So, as many people may see diversity as a checkbox on HR standards, we, as community of innovators, we know that it represents much more than that. It represents maybe a competitive advantage, and we want to look at it like that. As Miles' law says, where you stand depends on where you sit. Gender, sexual orientation, disability, or age are characteristics where diversity can be crucial for success in areas such as creativity, retaining talent, and better customer understanding. And it's not less important to reinforce that it's also a matter of social justice, as everyone should have the opportunity to access work, education, or health despite their background. A recent study by Startup Genome discloses that in most major European cities, less than a quarter of professionals working in tech are women, less than a quarter. Only 10% of funding is directed to female-led startups, a number that is still stuck in 2018, 10%. A ranking by the same organization puts a Portuguese city, Porto, in the top 25 European cities for female tech leaders. In a place where we are, where the percentage of LinkedIn members working in tech functions who are women is only 25%, I think we can do a lot more. Women should account at least for 50% of the workforce. An inquiry done by the European Union Agency for Fundamental Rights states that 25% of black individuals in Europe have felt some discrimination when looking for work, and 82% state that the color of their skin or physical aspect were primary sources of bias when looking for a job, 82%. But there are more examples. Disabilities, for instance, they can be physical or mental illness, for example. Economic background or education are often criteria that activate biased behaviors in every process of interaction of an organization with its community, from employees to clients and other stakeholders. In 2006, Todd Pitsky introduced the concept of allophilia, a positive attitude towards out-group members. May this be the way towards the future? If we go diverse, a brighter future may be on our way. But how can we do it? Where are the good examples? Who's doing it right? To share some good practices and examples, we invited 4 brilliant women to this talk today. Inês Sequeira, director at Casa do Impacto, a hub for impact startups, a fierce advocate of diversity, who will be our moderator for the day. Filipa Matos, vice president of special operations at Remote, one of our most recent unicorns, and we have 7, will share some good examples and their experience with Remote for Refugees, a program that makes it easier and cost-effective for businesses to invest in refugee talent. Joyce Pinto, head of strategy at Bantuman, will talk about their experience on empowering and giving voice to the Black community. And Mariana Brilhante, founder of Speak, which has helped hundreds of migrants and refugees feel included in several cultures by providing languages classes. Thank you all to these speakers. Thank you all for coming, and I hope that you can inspire all the community to do better. Last but not least, for a warm-up, we will bring you today Cláudia Fonseca from Microsoft. She's CFO for Portugal, Ireland, and Austria, who has been a great advocate for diversity and inclusion at Microsoft Portugal. She's going to tell us about employees' resource groups at Microsoft and how they can impact on one's life. Thank you very much, and welcome, please, Cláudia from Microsoft.
Thank you for the invite. And hello, everyone. So it's a privilege to be here in name of Microsoft and share a little bit about our Microsoft experience. Let me start by saying that in our mission, there is something that is said that actually can only be true if we respect diversity. So we say our mission is empower every person on the planet and every organization to achieve more. But if you say every, you know, it has to be really every, and with all the diverse perspectives. And, you know, to attest for that, we have also, all of us have a core priority. All employees in Microsoft have a core priority of diversity and inclusion. So every year, I need to commit, what am I going to do to be diverse and inclusive? And then there is also this other thing, which is the employee resources group that you alluded to, which is several groups. So we have Black at Microsoft, we have women at Microsoft, Asian at Microsoft, families at Microsoft, military, and it goes on and on and on. And so these groups, what happens is, if you identify yourself with this group, it's very good to come into the company and you say, hey, I can join this group and I can speak about matters that are important to me, you know, and how can here at the company actually help me professionally and personally on these matters. But also, if I am not a militaire, but I am an ally to militaires, for example, I can join that group as an ally. And what happened, and that's the real story, the real example that I was invited to share, is how powerful this can be. So there is one employee resource group at Microsoft that is LGBTQ. And in Portugal, we had a member in our team, as obvious in any company, you will have gays, transsexual, and so on, but they normally cover, they normally hide. And, you know, he learned about this group internationally, at Corp, worldwide, and he said, with the support of his manager, why not open a chapter here in Portugal and speak more openly in Microsoft Portugal about this theme? And again, with the support of his manager, he opened that chapter. It helped himself to come out because he had not admitted he was gay. But after that, he actually became a much more happier person because he did not have to hide anymore. And more than that, he actually started to see other people joining the group as because they identified with that group or because they wanted to be allies to that group. And back in 2019, before COVID hit us, there was the Pride Parade that normally takes place, or that does take place in Lisbon. Now it has stopped. And Microsoft was actually part of it. And I think that attests to show to other companies that we respect diversity and accept it and really talk, you know, openly, can share it openly. And he was the one, he and the employee resource group, LGBTQ, in Portugal, that provided this, you know, and that initiated, allowed for Microsoft Portugal to be part of that Pride Parade with a big bus. Our general manager was on the bus also, many employees were there and many allies. That's just one example. What I can say is that this topic is, and several diverse topics are talked openly at Microsoft. And there is a sentence that I used to say, which is the following. Diverse and inclusion is like, if you are invited to the dance, that's like diversity, you know? Let's invite diverse people to the dance. But it only will really be real if you invite them to then dance, really. You invite them to the party, but then you invite them to dance, and that's when they feel included. So more than diversity is actually what do we need to do to have the diverse people, but then really feel them included. And I can tell you that even I, and I'm a white woman, I'm women, that's a little bit of a stigma maybe, but sometimes, you know, I am invited, we are in certain meetings and or in certain gatherings, and if you are siloed in on a side and people don't talk to you, you know, you don't feel included, and it's a feeling that you don't like to have. So I really try with my teams, and even when I hire people and so on, to be very conscious about diversity. I make my mistakes also. We all have our unconscious bias. And I'm sure I make mistakes, but actually Microsoft has helped me with also intensive training to understand and to watch out for those unconscious bias. So I don't know if you wanted me to say anything else, but this was sharing just a little bit of experience from Microsoft. Thank you.
Round of applause. Thank you, Cláudia.
Welcome.
Yes. Thank you. So now we want to welcome Inês from Casa do Impacto, Filipa from Remote, and Mariana from Speak, and directly from Angola, Joyce from Bantuman. Okay.
It's okay. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great seeing you all after these 2 years, see the ecosystem all together. Congratulations to Startup Portugal. I think these kinds of events are fundamental for the ecosystem and to bring such issues that we in the impact ecosystems are so passionate about. And diversity, for me, personally, it's one of the most, my favorite causes, also because I think inequalities are always the biggest problem and the biggest issue that we have in the world. So diversity is also a thing that is very linked to all the projects that the Casa do Impacto supports. And in Portugal, we also feel that gender is still the only thing that is really talked about. Even if I think it's so important, of course, there are other themes and issues that we should talk about. And I think today, normally women talk more about these issues than men. That's a fact. And even in Casa do Impacto, it's always one thing that I think that was not mentioned, that Santa Casa, for example, that has the social work and welfare state in Lisbon, 97% of the people that work in the social area are women. So that makes us think why it's a female issue and a female matter, and we don't involve more men. It's like technology is also a team, and normally is mainly male that are in technology. So welcome, Mariana.
Oh, thank you.
Welcome, Filipa, and welcome, Joyce. We will start. I will start. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly.
Yeah. So I think to start, I will ask you for you to introduce yourselves. I think it's better than I introduce you. So I will start to Mariana. Do you want to start to say what is Speak and what you do?
Hello, everyone. Thank you. Is it working? Yeah, perfect. My name is Mariana, and I'm part of Speak team. And what we do is we connect locals and newcomers through language and culture exchange experiences. Basically, we are fighting social exclusion with a very simple solution, which is bringing people together through language and culture exchange experiences, where people not only learn the language, but actually the language is an excuse for you to be together in a safe environment and break prejudice, start to getting to know the other, find things in common, and at the end of the day, build an informal network of support in the city where you're living. And with our experience, what we noticed it was that there was a stakeholder that we were not yet working with that has a huge impact on your sense of belonging. And that's the end game of inclusion, right? And that stakeholder was companies, and we started working with companies, developing and helping them to make that check assessment where they are and take them to their goals on diversity and inclusion and equity journey. So we work with them, and we can talk a little bit more about that later on. Thanks,
Thank you,
Inês.
Mariana. Filipa, I will ask the same to you if you want to present your project. And
Of course. Thank you, Inês. So I'm Filipa, I'm part of the Remote team. Remote is an EOR business, and that means that we enable businesses to hire people so they can work from anywhere without having to move to a specific country, without having to, be forced to work because they really want to take that dream job, they need to move to a particular country. So we enable that by having our own entity established in every single country in the world. We're still expanding. We just started 3 years ago, but already present in more than 60 countries. So we basically do that. So Remote enables businesses to allow people to work from anywhere. And quite recently, we launched a program called Remote for Refugees, which is basically the fact that we empower also businesses to look at the refugee community and really look at them as talent, as a pool of talent that it's there, and it's looking for opportunities like everyone else. So instead of discriminating this group, we actually encourage businesses to hire this talent that is spread across the world by not paying a management fee with Remote. So actually it's free for these businesses to hire refugees in all of these countries. So yeah, this is a bit about this program and a bit about Remote.
thank you, Filipa.
Thank you.
And now, Joyce, I would ask you for you to speak a little bit about One also and what you do.
Yeah, thank you. Hello, everybody from the south of Angola. My name is Joyce Pinto. I'm head of strategy at Bantuman. Bantuman is a media project that focuses on telling the stories of the Black community in Portuguese-speaking countries, from Portugal, Angola, São Tomé e Príncipe, Cape Verde, and yeah, we focus on artists, entrepreneurs, every and all Black people that are doing amazing things around the world that most of the time don't get any time in mainstream media. We are the ones that give them their first platform and then help them build off of that. Most importantly, my role specifically is to help our project find financial sustainability, because most of the time when people think about projects that revolve around diversity, they think of it somewhat like charity, and that's not true. We are a media company first and foremost. We have content creators, we have artists, we have entrepreneurs, and their work should be rewarded. So yeah, there's that aspect, and there's also the social impact aspect. We are focusing on telling stories that maybe people wouldn't hear, maybe people wouldn't believe that there are professional Black people doing the amazing work they're doing, but we are here to showcase that, and I hope to talk more about that during our talk.
Thank you, Joyce. Thank you. Now, to start, Mariana, I would ask you, as a co-founder of Speak, and your whole experience with inclusion, and we talked a lot about this, the challenges of having a project like that, and even our own bias that we all have. And for you, what do you think, if you would to give an advice to companies or to other startups, how do you think it would be important for them to start thinking about this, and what measures do you think it will be important to start with?
Thanks, Inês. I think that Cláudia mentioned a little bit about it, and you as well. I think the first step is for us to assume that we are all biased and we all have blind spots. So Like, this is not something that it's invented or made up. It's real. We have our connections, and it's easier to put people in places because there's a lot of information in the world. So when we look at someone, when we see someone for the first time, we tick some boxes. This person fits here or here. And that first step really helps to also do our internal check, and then to do in our company. Okay, where are we standing? And that analysis, we were talking before, like Remote is a startup, but it has 1,000 employees. Like it's in 3 years. So the benefit of starting early on, it's because it's embedded in your DNA. And as you look for different profiles, like if you're a tech team, you will need someone who gives you the business side, you will need someone who gives you the financial side, and that should be from scratch, like from the beginning of the company, because there's always things that are important metrics, and diversity and inclusion should be together with business metrics, because there's the business case. Let's not even talk about what is the correct thing to do. It's to give opportunity to everyone to access certain positions or all positions. That is like what we should do as human beings. But then we have the business case, and the business case is made. Like, we don't need to invent it. And after checking where you are, make the commitment. Like, if you make the commitment, and if the commitment is public, then you're going to work for it. Like, if the commitment is made to your employees, if the commitment is made to your investors, which is a challenge because most of investors are also on the profile that we talked about, so it's not diverse in itself. And if you make the commitment to your community, then you're gonna work for it. Like, there's some companies that attach bonuses to diversity measures. So if you're a manager, like, are you giving opportunities to everyone in the same? And then Cláudia also mentioned the employee resource groups. So the commitment needs to come from the top. There's no doubt about that. But then the initiatives can also come from the rest of the company. And those initiatives, like, training is important, but training fades away. So there's studies that say that we forget things 6 days after. Like, 6 days after, like, who knows who had lunch yesterday? Like, what did you have lunch for yesterday? So information kind of fades away. We need things that are more embedded in our daily lives, like the employee resource groups, like the transformation actions that we can do of getting to know people. And I think the experience of Speak really talks about that, like getting to know the other so we can actually break a little bit the biases that we have. And when we work with some companies, we even realize that the company makes a decision, and then each employee starts the journey in different points. So for one employee, the work of 1 year success can mean accepting that inequality exists and accepting that a person who is sitting next to him doesn't have the same opportunities. Because a simple fact that when we choose to mentor someone, we normally go for the person who looks like me. Oh, I'm going to mentor that person. Like, it reminds me of me. What are you saying? That if you're on the top, you're giving tools and opportunities to people who look like you. So the top in 5 years will look again like you. And these are simple activities that can be done, but the decision needs to come from the leadership. That's one of the key things that we have learned.
Thank you, Mariana. And Filipa, in your opinion, what advice would you give to someone that is founding a startup or a company and wants to think about these issues?
I think that when we think about diversity and inclusion, we need to look at it with glasses of kindness. Because instead of just looking at it as a challenge, as something that it's good as a company to do, we should look at from the other perspective. So in case of remote, we are a full remote company. So everyone is working remotely from all these different countries. We actually have people based in more than 40 countries as of today. And we don't know everything. And that's okay. If you are well-intended, that's okay, we will learn together. For instance, something very simple like this. In certain countries, the week doesn't start on a Monday. So whenever you wish, like, have a great weekend, are you being inclusive enough when you're saying that if someone in that specific space is actually part of a country where the weekend doesn't start on a particular day? So these particular things are also something that we learn as we grow. And by including this from the scratch, as Mariana was saying, it needs to be part of the DNA. It cannot be just an exercise of a group that goes for several training sessions that come up with a different mission, different values, but then doesn't do anything about it. It really needs to be lived. It needs to reflect what the company wants to do. And that can be simple things like, okay, we have this amazing talent in a particular country without having the right infrastructure to contribute at the same level as everyone else. What are we going to do about this? Are we going to say no to this candidate? No. So actually remote, we have a very special example in Kenya of one of our employees that we actually rented an apartment so she could have access to Wi-Fi, stable Wi-Fi. And that is really what matters by the end of the day. You can have like the most amazing handbook. You can have the most amazing group of policies, but if you don't do anything about it, it's just empty. So I would say that having these type of actions, really living up to the value of being kind, of being inclusive, of looking to, making sure that the culture that you are creating in your startup is an inclusive one, not only regarding gender, race, but actually other groups that in most of these conversations are not mentioned, and they are so important. So I would say that is the most significant thing that I would recommend.
Okay, thank you, Filipa. And now to Joyce, I will make a different question. Is that, Joyce, we already talked about the ecosystem of entrepreneurship in Portugal, and how in Casa do Impacto, for example, we feel that is not diverse. The founders are normally male, white, and for you, what do you feel? Yes, and what do you feel that we should do as an ecosystem to embrace more diversity, even in our startups, our investors, etc.?
I think, first of all, we need to address biases, because a lot of the times people just think that they're making the right choices because the choice is obvious. What do I mean by that? For example, Ventureman has a platform, has a lot of potential, but that isn't translated in the way companies approach us. We feel that we are not treated in the way that platforms that have our size or sometimes even smaller are, because people don't translate our success to the success that they would attribute to a platform that focuses on life stories. So I think it's important to change your lens to evaluate people. On the other hand, I think it's important also to take risks. Sometimes we as a community are not seen as a good investment because people think it's too risky, but there's risk in business in every aspect you look at it. So it's important to also be able and willing to take risks when it's not the obvious choice. It's also important to have Black people in the room, because I understand that it is tough to make some choices, and sometimes having someone there to guide you is really important. We have a perspective that maybe people from other communities don't about ourselves. So it is important to have some counseling or some consulting from people in the community to help steer you in the right direction. So I think it's really important to have Black voices with you. When it comes to startups, I think there's so much information floating around. I know it isn't easy for startups to just hire people out of the blue or have consulting firm help them, but there's a lot of information. So not assuming that you are coming from a place of knowledge is also important. Be able and open to understand that maybe you don't know everything, maybe you need to research and have access to different information. I think will help entrepreneurs make better decisions when they are making in the decision-making process in their startups. So, yeah.
Thank you, Joyce. And Mariana, what do you say as a co-founder of Speak, in your experience with diversity and inclusion, what are for you, your personal experience, the main advantages of having these kind of policies inside a company?
The main advantages. First, a little bit of what Joyce was saying. So it's the representation of the community. Like we live in a country where the Black community is a big part, being first generation or second generation or Portuguese, and it's not represented on our companies. And we can talk about the Black community, or we can talk about other cultures, or like different cultures in Portugal, that it's more and more part of our daily life. And if we don't have this representation in our companies, we are not in the market. Like, we cannot keep up with the market because the market is changing and we don't know. And as we were talking before, we have blind spots, and nobody is there in the room to tell us what our blind spot is, or what are the opportunities for different businesses, for new business models, or for new products, or for new services that are fundamental. And the creativity, I think António was once mentioning at the beginning, like, there's the creativity, the diverse opinions, the confrontation that brings value to the companies. And this is the experience that we have seen. Like, not only this, but then I think it's kind of contradictory that startups, and I'm generalizing, so I apologize if I'm offending anyone, but they bet a lot on the well-being of employees with amazing perks that are maybe for your physical health, but then we are not allowing people to be their own selves in the workplace. So how come, like, having a ping pong table or having like snacks is more important than me being able to be in a team where I feel I can be my full self and not be called? I bet pretty much most of women in the room have too assertive, or being called strong opinionated, or you and your Latin temper, things like that. Yes, thank you very much. I don't try to hide it, but like it's a negative thing. And it's interesting because in one of the companies that we worked with, there was one of the events we organized, one of the moderator, a Black woman, was saying that she felt prejudice from clients and none of the coworkers knew about it. How is it possible that you work side to side with someone for years and you do not realize that this person doesn't feel okay in certain meetings? How is that okay? But then you have like snacks and free things. Like, so I think that's kind of allowing yourself to be yourself like 24 hours a day. It's a relief. And it should be like this for everyone.
Thank you, Mariana. And for you, Filipa, what do you think that is the main, what are the main challenges of bringing diversity inside a company, and what's the biggest advantages that you already felt that the company had won because of that?
I think starting with the challenges, I would say that the main challenges is for companies to realize that we are really starting to become a global workforce instead of just having, being targeted to particular countries or particular regions. The talent is becoming global. And by allowing yourself to expand your pool of talent to everywhere, to everyone, will only benefit the business. We've been seeing that at Remote because we hire for certain competencies. So we're looking for people with certain skills and certain experience, not people from this place or another place. That doesn't matter by the end of the day. It doesn't matter if you are based in a particular country and you don't have the right experience for the job. We really care about the experience and putting people on the right role for them to succeed. So I would say that the challenge is for the main challenge is for the companies to really be open for this and realize that they can expand their pool of talent. I would say that the benefits are so many. It's such an amazing experience, and I can just talk from my personal experience. I've never been in such a diverse group before. We have people from every single country, different time zones, different languages, different cultures, and it's so cool. Every time that you go into a Zoom call, of course that I would love to see them all one day, and hopefully we will see each other one day. But the thing is, you always learn something. You have someone with a different perspective. Brainstorming is the normal of these meetings. So you have people contributing with different backgrounds, with different perspectives into the same thing. And that will only, you will only get amazing results out of there. So creativity, as you were mentioning, for sure is one of the benefits of having such a diverse group of people. Yeah.
Thank you, Filipa. Joyce, I will ask you the same. In your opinion, what are the main advantages of embrace diversity for a company?
Variety of ideas is definitely one of them. I think when you're a company that wants to reach the most people possible, you want the best pool of ideas that you can possibly find. And people have different experiences, people have different backgrounds, so they will contribute in a different manner. On the other hand, people just have differences. I'm not one of those people that think the answer to inclusion is, oh, I don't see differences. No, we're all different. There's beauty in that. I lived in Portugal for 7 years, and I learned things about Portugal that I would have never knew if I didn't live there, if I didn't see people day to day. I learned differences from people from the north of Portugal, from the south of Portugal, people that are Portuguese by just nationality, but they're from different countries. We all have different experiences, and that's what makes the world rich. I love living in the world of the internet for that. I have friends from different nationalities living in different places, and that makes me a better person. So why wouldn't that work for companies? Why wouldn't it make you a better company to have people from different places in the world with different experiences, with different languages? It will make you richer, and it reflects in numbers. I read a lot of studies around diversity, and it reflects companies that have different diverse leadership have better results financially. They have better culture. They reach more people. So it's a win-win situation. So I think that we can only win with diversity, but we have to do it meaningfully. We have to do it impactfully. We can't just do it superficially. You said something that really connected with me about, the diversity in people that invest. And that's really important, because if you don't see yourself in the person that is selling a product or trying to tell you a story, you're not going to invest in them. And that's why so many ideas just die in the cutting floor, because people don't believe in them, because they can't connect with them. And it's not because they're not good storytellers, it's because you don't connect with them in the personal level, maybe because you never seen anything like that. So I think people should look at the financial benefits of diversity, because it's there. It's not just some social presenter thing. There are tangible results, monetarily speaking, in diversity.
Thank you, Joyce. Probably I will just ask you, the three of you, to, in 1 minute, we have the Secretary of State here for the government. So I always like to, we in entrepreneurship always say that, as for example in mentorship in Casa do Impacto, I always like to have entrepreneurs doing mentorship, because I always think that just the people that have like suffering the real pain of it, that can teach and to really understand what we are talking about. And I always think that when we talk about diversity is the same. People think that what is political correct or no, and some people try to think that they are very sensitive. I think people are not sensitive. It's like when you feel things in your own skin is always different than when you don't feel it. So I think a good government has to listen to those people. So if we want to make and to create an ecosystem of entrepreneurship, and I always feel that innovators are the people that have a mindset that are more open, and they look always to the future. And that's my passion about entrepreneurship, is that I think I hate living in the present all the time. I have to always think ahead. And what do you feel? In 1 minute, if we have quotas for gender equality, for example, and I feel that it was a very good policy because it helped a lot women to be in the same places that men are. So in this ecosystem, what do you think that it could be a good policy to embrace more diversity in the ecosystem? Mariana, in 1 minute?
Yeah, I was thinking about quotas. It's quite controversial. And I would say quotas, well done. Because there's also show that if you're like, or the only woman or the only minority represented in board levels, for example, that can backfire. And so I would say power in numbers. And that would be my, that would be, I hope that one day we don't need quotas, but it's a path that it's done sometimes too slowly.
Filipa, being creative now, what do you think that could be a good policy, a public policy too?
Well, I would say that extending the quotas to other groups can be an option and can be very interesting, but also looking at certain, for instance, there are countries where we have, after a certain limit of employees in a company, need to hire someone with a disability, for instance. And that helps companies and disabled people to be, more connected with the business, to be integrated. So I think instead of just waiting that long, at the really beginning, if we can make that as part of the law, the public policy, that would be really, really interesting. Because when we talk about this topic of diversity and inclusion, we really focus on certain groups. And for instance, certain age groups, disabled people, they're left out of these type of conversations more often than not. So I think looking at those groups is really, really important at the moment.
Thank you, Filipa. We in Santa Casa, we have Valor T, that is an agency that tries to do that, to connect the companies and to integrate as employees disabled people. So it's a good measure. Joyce, and for you, what you would say?
I actually agree with hiring quotas, but I wanted to add something else, which is transparency in the way people are paid. Because there's a lot of disparities, even when people of color and women and other minorities are part of companies, the way they're paid and their path to growing in the company is not always the same as other people. So I think if you have to be transparent about it, if you have to write it down, why that person doesn't make as much money as the other, or why that person was passed off for that promotion, I think people would think twice about why they're actually doing it. Because having people just in your company to fill quotas, it's amazing, it's important, and it works, but I don't think it's enough. Because if you are always relegating people to non-leadership positions, it's not really going to change the culture of the company. People need to be in key roles that they deserve, that they have worked for, but they need to be in those roles and they have to see a clear path to it. So I think transparency in those type of policies would be amazing and life-changing.
Thank you, Joyce. So we are ending.
Some time for Q&A now.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So
So I don't know if anyone in the room has a question. I would ask for people with.
That was a very quick hand.
Yeah.
I'm
But
afraid of what's
I
coming.
will start with one from our remote attendees. So, how can white employers erase their white savior syndrome and improve their ally behavior? I don't know if you heard, Joyce. Did you hear?
Barely, I'm sorry. Can
Okay,
you
so
repeat
I'll
that?
repeat. How can white employers erase their white savior syndrome and improve their ally behavior? So does anyone
Oh,
have?
that's a tough one.
it is.
I'd like to give it a go if you don't mind.
Okay.
Mariana.
I think given the starkness of the disparity. Oh, can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was saying, given the disparity, given the inequalities, I think I'd rather you are wrong in a positive way than you being wrong in a negative way. What do I mean by that? If that sentiment, which I know is real and I can understand doesn't feel really good, makes you hire more Black people, pay more Black people, and do more positive things in that community, I think you should go with that instinct. I think eventually it will give way to the positive of the action, because it's really, I understand it can be condescending and paternalistic to some Black people to feel like they're constantly in a need to be saved. But I think it's more important for us to be in those positions, getting that financial stability, because I think people underestimate the importance of financial stability and sustainability, which is something that contributes a lot to the social aspect of diversity and racism and that issue. So I think you should use that feeling to fuel you helping that community. I don't know if that helps, but that's my opinion on that.
Thank you.
Hey. Hi, everybody. I just love the talk very, very much. It's more like how do you? We spoke a lot about like how companies can actually be inclusive, but how can we actually start a movement on saying like, look, I'm not gonna join this talk because there's only males on the panel. You know, like how can we kind of create a culture? So there is like really famous articles about like, oh, it takes a whole village to rise an entrepreneur. So how can you rise properly, like the entrepreneurs, you know, like how can we create kind of ambassadors to say like, hey, like this is how it's supposed to be. And we don't take things going the other way because it's not cool to everybody, you know. So in this way, we can also show to other people that's not like kind of prepared to embrace diversity. Because I've been to quite a blind spot a really long time ago, and it took me a lot to realize that I've been to a blind spot. So I was trying once to bring more women for a certain program, and I was okay, let's give a discount for women. And then there was the worst approach that I could have it. Like I had a bright woman that said like, May, talk to a woman. And I was like, okay. And then I understood that like I should change my communication, I should change the way that I write events. I have to have a code of conduct, because sometimes you don't feel, a lot of times actually, you don't feel comfortable on events. And if I want to attract more women, I have to open inscriptions first for women. So they see that there are more women at the event, so they will feel comfy. And how can you actually create like this mindset and like create ambassadors? So for the ones that are not really into the diversity world, they learn from other people and say like, hi, this is a good practice or not. Sorry, I
Who
just
wants
got too
to
emotional.
answer it?
Do you want to have a go? Oh, I can. If,
No.
yeah? Okay. Well, I would say that by having events like this one, right? We need to talk about it, and not feeling any type of blame when we are talking about diversion, right? No one knows everything about it, and we will all make mistakes. But I think, you know, what you just said about having ambassadors, about starting a movement, it's really, really interesting, because if we start talking about this more and more, and I would say that we're hearing a lot about diversity and inclusion nowadays, but also, you know, there was something that Joyce said a few minutes ago that I really think that it's like the point about everything. You need to be humble enough to recognize that you don't know everything. So you need to be proactive and look for information and try to become your best every day. And that's the only thing that you can do every day. Even if you know, weren't aware of a situation yesterday, but then you became aware and you improved your behavior, that's really cool and that's really positive. So you should be proud of yourself. It takes a lot of courage to recognize that. And I hope that that everyone can take those steps going forward by being, by looking for information, by attending to these type of events, and also to be themselves or to become themselves an ambassador of the movement for diversity and inclusion.
Yeah, I think that's just to add on that. That's the point, to be like an ambassador. A lot of people say, like, if you see a crime and you do not interfere, you're doing the crime yourself. And I think that brings to the topic, like, if you see signs in your family, in your group of friends, in your workplace, like, do not be quiet. Like, we all have the obligation to identify when someone is being a target of microaggressions or a target of bias or anything. And this doesn't mean like fighting on the street. It means acknowledging, like, just simple examples, like interrupting women in meetings. This happens so often, like really so often. And it's like, oh, like, we don't need to say anything more than, oh, let's just let Filipa finish her thoughts, okay? Or someone makes a joke, oh, you're taking parental leave, huh? Like, good time off. Okay, why shouldn't he? Like, why is that not okay? And every time we have that obligation, and all of us, and the movement starts growing. So obviously, like, I have a hard time. My family is quite the opposites on my beliefs. So for me, this is like an ongoing conversation, and I need to keep my cool because not always is possible. But let's try not to be defensive and make that our everyday cause.
Okay, so we have time for 2 more questions. So
It's behind you.
Yeah.
Oh.
Good evening. Just to go back to your question, the question you were just posing regarding how to prepare a better event. I think that we all need to include more voices while preparing events, because just looking at this event, I feel quite uncomfortable with the lack of representation of the minorities that we are here talking about. This is a very, very serious issue where we need to count. We desperately need to count on the allyship of everyone, because ultimately this touches everyone. There is an interconnectivity. Lack of diversity is not only a stupidity from the financial point of view, as it has been said. It is an absurd that has been killing people every day. Because when we talk about the biased algorithms, which are being perpetuated on machine learning, as you all know, We are on a verge. We are in a time where we are programming the machines that will be programming other machines. And we live on a biased world. So it's really up to each one of us to become an ally. I know guilt will follow you, because that comes from the privilege you have. And each time we feel privilege, we should transform our guilt into opportunity of empowering someone else. Being it with stories, personal stories, sharing stories, or knowledge that we gain through books. Please read. There is a lot of information. Get involved yourself. You can prepare talks about this, involving people different from you. It's all it takes, involving other co-creators. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any other questions?
There was one
Yeah,
here.
that one here.
Hello. Thank you for the talk. It's been great. I just wanted to ask, I really want to, I work in an amazing place. I feel that we are very welcome. I feel that my voice is not interrupted a lot of times. It's a very inclusive company. But we've been posting some job ads, and I feel that we don't receive a lot of diversity in the candidates that we receive. So how can we push our message that we are inclusive, that you feel welcome here, and that you are welcome to apply to a job at my company? What do you recommend?
I think that the answer was a little bit behind there. First, like, work with organizations that are specialized in the topic. So if you want to have representation of diverse groups, like, go and talk to those people so they can check, like, your communication is probably not communicating what you want. And I think that would be like one of the approaches, because if you're not receiving it, like, we know that women respond to an ad job if it corresponds to 100% of the requirements. A man normally typically responds 60%. So here you're already and you know, if you use like certain words that are connected more feminine, certain words that are connected more masculine, and I'm sure, like, I don't know if you know other examples, but there must be communication that it's not actually open to everyone. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I wanted to add something.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's important also to find people where they are. For example, LinkedIn is not a very friendly network or social media, if you could call that, for someone that is the first person in their family to go to college, the first person in their family to go to a traditional company to work. So they're not going to see the value in LinkedIn. So you should really try to find people where they are. Social media is a great place to place ads regarding to jobs, and it will increase the people that would apply to it, but maybe you'll find more of the people that you're looking for when it comes to diversity. You have to find people where they are. You have to try to find platforms that cater to them and know how to talk to them. So that's really important to do. You know, it's hard when diversity encompasses so much, which is why sometimes I also feel like it's impossible to fit everybody in every conversation. It can be race, it can be gender, it can be sexuality, it can be your mental state. So it encompasses a lot of things. Try to find where those people are comfortable, you know, so that's important. And find the people that are talking to them already, so you can find ways to connect with them through them.
Thank you, Joyce. Okay, so that's a wrap,
That's it.
I think. So I want to thank you, Rita, Inês, Joyce, and Mariana for being here today. I want to thank everyone also who's joined us here and remotely, who are watching us at home. We hope we can see you in real life next time, in the next event. Before we go upstairs for drinks and some live jazz, I'd like to remind you that these hangouts will happen every last Wednesday of the month, okay? And the next one will be focused on cybersecurity, okay? We will try to talk a little bit about the challenges and what kind of things we can, opportunities can be for startups and the entrepreneurial ecosystem in that area, okay? So have a nice evening and thank you all.
Thank you.